So I'm delighted to be back here in the studio and at the Twilight Community Group International Conference being held in New Park Hotel today. And I'm joined by one of the speakers on the agenda, and it's Garda Andy Neill, who's a community policing officer here in Kilkenny. Andy, welcome.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Frank. Yeah, look, it's great to be back at this conference. I must say that when I attended and I spoke at it in 2019, before the world changed, for the first time, the world changed.
Isn't it great, first of all, that we can have a meeting today of so many different groups here in Kilkenny.
And to shake hands, Frank.
Shake hands.
And to shake hands.
And to be even talking.
Yeah, and to talk and to see and to meet people and to be able to see a response in their whole face, you know, and not just behind a mask.
Exactly.
And I think that isolation, but it's also an isolation and indeed in Garda Síochána, that we're starting things back again.
Yeah.
I was drafted into the main regular unit for the last couple of years, out of community policing, so I've only had very few engagements. But it's meeting. I met Ibrahim Nador a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't met him for such a long time. I haven't been at prayers in that community on a Friday for over 2 years. Small things like that. We were in a classroom yesterday at the CBS in Kilkenny, and again it was just to be able to start those things again, you know, and to keep the communication with all groups in our society.
But again, of course, you know, during the terrible 2 years that we've had, I mean, the role of yourselves and the Garda and other frontline workers has been so important in the community.
It has, yeah. It's been a different kind of outrage, and it's great. And I have a couple of colleagues who are very involved in things like the in things like the Meals on Wheels, and the mission to some of the older people who are living alone, who are now. I mean, we were assisted by dozens of volunteers and community members, so it was great. But there still is this thing. It's this fear, if we could say FOGO, fear of going out. And I suppose we did a great job in this country in protecting people as much as we could, I think. I'm not talking about Garda Síochána, I'm talking about the country as a whole.
Yes.
But we also grew a thing amongst a lot of communities who then just didn't feel they could venture out anymore. And am I okay to go out, Guard?
Yeah.
You know, and thank God for the vaccinations.
Yeah.
Thank God for the take-up.
Yes.
Thank God that not so many people are filling the hospital wards now. They are, I know, on a slight increase again.
But again, of course, it's not part of our culture, Andy. This last 2 years about being isolated, but not being able to talk to somebody, not being able to shake hands. So it is going to take time for people, again, to do what we do so well and so naturally here.
I think so, yeah. I think so. We had a lovely experience yesterday. There was a visitor from overseas, and he was an Englishman in his 80s, and he'd gone on a bus trip. Now, the way it happens, and some people call it dementia, some people call it Alzheimer's, but definitely there was a real forgetfulness issue. And the chap forgot where he was, and he went for a walk, and he walked, and he walked, and he walked some more. He ended up 5 or 6 miles from Kilkenny and collapsed and fell into a ditch. And fell into a ditch. He was found by a lady who was out walking.
Yeah.
She picked him up. She brought him, she wrapped him up warm. We coincidentally got a call from a bus company who someone hadn't returned. And it was just like, she did not know this man from Adam. There was no fear, there was no questions about this, that or the other, but all she wanted to do was help. And the Céad Míle Fáilte, he could have been from anywhere, it wouldn't have made a difference. And that kind of, those small heartwarming stories.
From a global point of view, we're seeing the same at the moment, aren't we, with the sadness that's happening in relation to Ukraine and the amount of support that's being given from people like all across Europe, Poland and Ireland here as well, like, you know, people who are helping people in a terribly sad and desperate time.
And I was looking at Moldova,
Yes.
and Moldova, as Ireland would have been one of the poor nations of Europe,
Yes.
once upon a time, economically, definitely would have been considered. Moldova occupies that similar position as not a wealthy country, Frank.
Yeah.
The way they've opened their doors, it's humbling.
It's
It is, and it's inspirational, and they of course fear a threat themselves from what can only be called the imperialistic machinings of a character we can't even talk about. But the way people have responded, the way, you know, and it's wonderful. We're now, as a country, have a response. Something I'll be mentioning today.
Yes.
I spoke to my wife, and she's a teacher, and one boy has joined them from the Ukraine, which means one family in one of the classes, and my daughter is doing teaching practice in a school in Dublin, and a little Ukrainian boy has joined their class. These kids, mainly women and children, they are great people.
Yes.
We're going to have to be there for them, not just now. It's not the experience, and we know it from the poor displaced Syrians, the future of PTSD.
Exactly.
And the issues that they're going to be dealing with. Yes. And we've got to be there. I know we will, though, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely we will. And you know, again, I suppose there's a presentation in the afternoon about moral obligation in today's conference, Andy. Like, you know, this is going to be up for all of us to do what we can to address what's going to be a difficult situation. But again, it's wonderful what Twilight are doing today, because obviously there are many groups within Europe who are going to be here today as well. Like, you know, so it's very appropriate.
It is fabulous, and it's something lovely to participate in. I don't think any of us here have all the answers.
No.
And some people say, "Oh, we're talking shop." No, it's not. I wouldn't call this a talking shop. I'd call this a listening shop.
It really is.
You know,
yeah.
And I look forward to hearing different experiences, because I know my experience, and I know when I put on this uniform, and where I'll be starting, and you know, it's like I was looking up a word earlier, Frank, right? And you know, and it's about, and it's something we all have to be aware of, and that is the word prejudice, which is to prejudge, comes from prejudge, and it really is something that every single person will have preconceptions before they meet people from a new culture, a new experience, a different sexual orientation, and it's people being aware, all of us being aware if we have prejudices, making sure that those don't that if we're aware, we can overcome them.
Yes.
If we, you know.
Yes, just to be open.
Yeah, to be open, and they're never right. They're never good. But it's also probably for communities and everything, talking and meeting. Yeah, to accept that we do all have different starting points, but with a good intention, the result can be good.
I was just speaking to Murty earlier, Andy, and again, I think it's all in the title, the Twilight, the community. And this is a community. I mean, your role is part of the community, so it's very much, it's a global word, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
That's really the answer in many cases. If we can start in the community and work ourselves out, it's fantastic. Garda, Andy Neill, Community Policing Officer, it's been so nice to talk to you ahead of your presentation. I really appreciate your time, and can I wish you continued success in the work that you do and your colleagues.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you.